We have Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the NFL draft. Now, this is my favorite day of the year almost every single year, and it is going to be especially my favorite this year when we are going to be at the 2023 NFL draft. So because we will be there and we will be on the red carpet, yes, on the red carpet with the guys getting drafted, with Bijan Robinson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, I will get to interview them, and we will be live streaming all of this on our YouTube channel. I never would have guessed in a million years when I started this back in my college closet, made hundreds and hundreds of videos with not a single soul watching, that we would somehow be on the NFL red carpet, 4 years later. So I owe you the biggest thank you I could ever give you. I can't even put it in words. Thank you so much for everything that you have done for me. And I have one last ask for you. Tune in. Come on. We're doing everything we can to make this the best show you could possibly watch. I am so excited for this monumental moment, and I really do want you to be there. It's not going to be on this YouTube channel. It'll be on our Flock Fantasy YouTube channel. You know, the main one. But thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, we have a couple people out here in the chat. Yeah, this is just awesome. Thank you so much. But James says, I was watching when you were in the dark room. Yes, James has been out here with us for quite some time. But yeah, thank you guys so damn much for everything. But I think that should be it for this little intro. Of course, we're going to be looking at teams of members of the flock here. And if you want to get your team broken down, as always, you know where you can do so. flockfantasy.com. Sign up with promo code FLOCK in the Mother Flocker package. That's how you get your team highlighted on one of these live streams. If you don't want it on the live stream, I can break it down in a personalized podcast just for you. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, not only are you going to get that team breakdown, but you are also going to get 30% off any subscription, access to all your favorite Dynasty Fantasy Football creators in their rankings. It's also something that's been awesome this offseason. Yeah, this has just been an offseason for the ages. And let's go into our first team here. This one coming out from Benji Franklin. Thank you so much. My man says 12-team Superflex, half PPR, start 10. We'll be moving to a 6-point passing touchdown plus 1 point per tight end premium format at the beginning of the 2024 season. I'm in a position where we have some win now players, but some young guys that aren't win now pieces. I like the upside I have with our starting lineup, and I think if we had more depth, I could push to win this year. Okay, so essentially we're kind of stuck in the middle. The 2024 first that we have is going to be a mid to late round 1 pick. So yeah, let's go into this roster and let's just break it down position by position as we always do. And I will start it off by saying the most boring thing we always do, but I think it is incredibly important. We do not have to make a decision on what we are going to be doing with this team in terms of rebuilding or contending today. That's not something we have to do right now. It will eventually be a bridge that we have to cross. We will have to figure out, okay, are we going to go through? Are we going to push to win this season? Or are we going to build for 2024? Because as you look at this roster, say if you're building for 2024, you have to sell Keenan Allen. You probably want to sell Calvin Ridley. You may want to sell Chris Godwin. You may want to sell DeAndre Swift. But a big thing that I think dynasty players in general make the mistake with, and this is something that I used to do back in the day because I've been addicted to Dynasty Fantasy Football way longer than anybody else here. I can almost guarantee you that is I used to sit there on MFL and just look at every team in every one of my leagues and feel like I have to send out 10 offers every single day, and I have to have my 5-year plan laid out immediately. In reality, we don't have to do that. In reality, it's almost smarter to sit back on your hands, get some more information when we get to the start of the season, see if we are starting off strong, if we have a team that can contend immediately. And if we start off 3-1, then yeah, maybe we go through and we make some plays for some more veteran pieces. Whereas if we start off 0-4, maybe we have a serious injury to someone like Justin Herbert. And then at that point we go, okay, yeah, we probably instead should be looking to play for 2024. Then we could look to go ahead and sell some of those win now assets and go in that direction. So we can always make trades in week 3, in week 4, in week 5. It's not something we're having to do right this second, but let's go into this roster with that thought process. So at quarterback, we are going to be rolling with Justin Herbert and Jared Goff in the starting lineup. Going over to the bench, we have Sam Darnold, Bailey Zappi, Desmond Ridder. So we really don't have too much down there on the bench. I mean, if I'm going to be looking at Jared Goff, I would say in general, this is a quarterback that I'd be very excited to have as our QB3. I mean, this is a worse spot today than it would have been just last week because, well, Jameson Williams was not necessarily a wide receiver I was too excited about from a fantasy football standpoint, because instead of profiling to be a target hog, he profiled to be a field stretcher. I wasn't in love with Jameson Williams as a fantasy football option, but as a real life NFL player and how he was going to improve upon the Detroit Lions offense, Jameson Williams was very exciting. So seeing the suspension definitely hurts Jared Goff in my mind. I would be very comfortable with Goff as our quarterback 3. As our QB2, I'm a little bit less excited about it, but in reality, this quarterback position is going to be fine. Now, going over to running back, we're going to be looking at DeAndre Swift, Cam Akers in the starting lineup. Now with Swift, this is a running back that obviously has seen his value probably cut in half from where he was last offseason, maybe even a little bit more. Last offseason, he was a consensus top 5 running back in Dynasty for literally everybody. Obviously, Jamal Williams goes out there and scores all the touchdowns last season. The coaching staff doesn't look like they want to use DeAndre Swift as an Alvin Kamara, as an Aaron Jones type player. They go out there and they re-sign David Montgomery. So yes, Swift is in free fall, but given the great offensive line that you're looking at in Detroit, given the great receiving down skill set DeAndre Swift still has, and given the fact that I still believe Swift to be a great talent, I actually like building around DeAndre Swift. And then obviously here with Cam Akers, so running back there, you're just kind of having to hold. You're not going to get anything if you look to trade him. It's hard to say that he is some massive buy low running back, though. I think he's probably appropriately valued. Going down to the bench, we don't have much running back depth, as you were already indicating. Our rookie pick this year is only the 206. So yeah, definitely at running back. I mean, we're lacking depth here. Going to wide receiver, we have Lamb, Godwin, Ridley, Keenan Allen, as well as Jahan Dotson. Going down to the bench, I mean, we have Zay Jones. Maybe you could start him. You have Joshua Palmer. Maybe you could start him. But just like what you were saying, we don't have any depth at receiver. Going to tight end, we have David Njoku. Keep in mind, tight end's not going to be too important this season, considering the fact that at the end of the day, I mean, we don't have the full tight end premium bonus, but next year we will. Yeah, I mean, just like you were saying at the top, this starting lineup looks fine, but the second we have an injury, the second something goes sideways, we are going to be put in a tough spot, having absolutely no depth on this team. So there are a few different things that we can talk about here. One, in general, if this was a team that was normal with its future draft picks, I would say, you know what? I may want to go through and sell some of these assets. I may want to sell Keenan Allen for future picks. I may want to sell Calvin Ridley. I may want to sell Chris Godwin and just accumulate future draft picks, build around our cornerstone assets such as a CeeDee Lamb, and then figure out how it turns out in the long run. But the reason we're not able to go down that path, and the reason that we're almost forced to try to solve this situation this season, is we've already gone through and traded away our 2024 first. We have the 2024 first of another owner, and it does put us in a very difficult spot, and it does make us really have to contend this season. So what I would personally look to do, and I know this is such a small move, but it's really the only thing that I think we can do at this point, is try to sell this 206 for one of two things. A player that we would either feel confident in being able to start this next season. If you could sell the 206 for someone like maybe Tyler Lockett, sure, let's go ahead. let's pull the trigger there. If you can sell the 206 for maybe like an Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixon, if you really want to go through and get that third running back, sure, we can pull the trigger there. The other thing we could look to do with that 206 is if we could look to sell it for a 2024 second and third round pick, I think that would also be advantageous. Now, not because I think that you're going to be able to go through and grab a great rookie in the second round or a great rookie in the third round of next year's draft. I'm not trying to accumulate those picks so we can use them next year. I think that if we are lacking depth, having those additional future draft picks will give us the flexibility during the season. Whereas if we have an injury to Calvin Ridley, if we have an injury to maybe David Njoku, we can then take that extremely flexible draft capital that we have with that future second and third round pick and look to sell those picks to a rebuilding roster during the season for exactly what we need. Because right now, if we were to go through and try to sell that 206 and figure out exactly what depth piece we need to fill this hole, we don't know if that hole is going to arise at running back. We don't know if that hole is going to arise at wide receiver. We don't know if it's going to show up at tight end. So without that certainty today, I think it almost makes a little more sense to accumulate those future picks. And because we don't have our 2024 first, and because we are going to be a little boxed into having to compete this season, I think the 2024 first that we have from T-Law era is also going to be a pick that we can look to move. Now, I think the worst thing anybody could do at this time of the year is trade away a 2024 first rounder, because having that first round pick is going to give us so much flexibility during the season, just like what we were talking about if we were trading the 206 for a future second and third. During this season, once we know what exactly we need, and we can look across the entire league and go, okay, well, yeah, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is having one hell of a season and he's on a rebuilding roster, then we know who to trade for. Rather than trying to have to make that guess today when we don't have all the information at our disposal, even if we make an extremely educated guess, at the end of the day, if we are trading for that player to fit into this roster and fill a hole that we have as of April 22nd, while it may be an extremely educated guess, it will still be a guess at the end of the day. So I think there aren't too many moves we can be making with this team, but just to recap, I think trading that 206 and giving ourselves the ability to accumulate more pieces to move during the season does make a lot of sense, even if it's just a small move. But when we're talking about depth, that's really going to be the only thing that we're doing is making those small moves. But again, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. And as always, if there's anything I can do, you know where to reach me. You know where to find me. Please let me know, especially if there's any way I can improve flockfantasy.com for you. Okay. But we have Peanut Butter and Waivers out here in the chat. Happy to see you here, my man. And Goose Con Gaming says, what is Jameson Williams' trade value? Is it a good time to buy low? Talk about Jameson Williams as soon as we see him on one of these rosters, my friend. But let's go over and let's look at B Stewart's team. It says a 12-team Superflex full PPR tight end premium format. Love to see this on YouTube as well, so feel free to squeeze it in if you can. Thanks for all the amazing content. Best Dynasty channel out there. No, thank you so much, my man, for being a member of the flock. But let's go into this team here. Keep in mind, this is going to be a half-point tight end premium format. So when we're looking at someone like Hawkinson, we can't be very excited. But let's go into the quarterback room first, where we are rolling with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, a quarterback that just gives us an incredibly high floor over the next decade. I mean, you're not having to worry about finding a starting quarterback for a long, long time. Going down to the super flex spot, we have Deshaun Watson. So we have two quarterback ones in Dynasty. We find ourselves in a phenomenal position, both with the security of our guys and the upside of these players. So I do think you're in a really good spot there in general. Now, going over to what we have down on the bench, I mean, we don't have a quarterback 3 of note. Is that the end of the world? Not necessarily, especially when we have the 106, especially when we have the 107, because if we have these picks, we'll get to this in just 1 second again, but we have the chance to be able to bring in Will Levis. And in my mind, if we need a quarterback 3, or if you need a quarterback at all, now that it looks like Will Levis is most likely going to be the second overall pick in this year's draft, I think that is going to be such a smash at pick 6 or at pick 7. I think we're probably going to assume that you're getting Will Levis as well as Jahmyr Gibbs there. But going over to running back, we have Eckler, we have Saquon Barkley. So we have the top end elite level production for this season, right? But these guys were drafted in 2017. They were drafted in 2018. So you are put in a little bit of a difficult spot projecting the long term for these players. I mean, short term, yes, we're really happy with it. Short term should make us a contender this next season, but it definitely would be nice to try to line up some players for later. We do have Javonte Williams, still incredibly young, obviously coming off a significant knee tear. I mean, multiple knee tears. The knee's absolutely destroyed. Probably shouldn't come back till halfway through this next season, but still young, has flashed upside. If we're looking at those picks again, like we were saying, I think pick 6, pick 7, you're most likely going to be coming away with Jahmyr Gibbs with one of these selections. So I think that will be a nice blend of both top-end production with Saquon Barkley as well as Austin Eckler, allowing us to compete today and next season, and then also the long-term value that you may have with Javonte Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, going over to wide receiver, we have Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans. Down there in the flex spot, we have Brandon Ayuk. And then going down to the bench, I mean, we have a Kadarius Toney, Joshua Palmer, but not too much wide receiver depth. And usually I would say, okay, well, yeah, we want to build around wide receivers here. We want to make sure that we are in a very comfortable position. This isn't one of those cases. Even if we have older wide receivers like Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans, whenever we are looking at a running back room that is this loaded, I would imagine that it's not every week that we are filling both of our flex spots with wide receivers. So you do get some more optionality. You do get some more flexibility with what we're going to do with the roster allocation here. Now, if we were to look to add in another wide receiver, something that I'd possibly consider, and I actually probably would do it. George Kittle's a player I love. However, I think it would be smart to see what we could get for him. Now, I understand with this being a tight end premium format, you would initially think, okay, well, Mason, I want to start George Kittle and TJ Hawkinson each and every week, and we are just going to dominate. We are going to roll over our opponents. But operating under the assumption this is a half-point tight end premium league, I think that we're probably better off to use George Kittle as leverage and get a wide receiver that's going to give us a comparable points per game mark at a younger age. If you had a chance to read our Dynasty research book, which I'd highly recommend, of course, I know you are a member of flockfantasy.com. Just go to the draft guide section, flockfantasy.com. We have our Dynasty research book out there. It's over 100 pages. And we have an entire chapter of diving into exactly how we should be optimizing for a tight end premium league in general. And if this is a half point per reception league, I think you'd probably be better off selling George Kittle, especially if we're able to add another piece to him and we're able to go get a young, productive wide receiver that should score just as many points this next year. If we could go out of our way, if we could add in someone like Jalen Waddle, for example, T. Higgins, just a wide receiver in that range, I think it would make a lot of sense. And going down to what we have with these picks, I think we have a lot of flexibility. Now, I like, in general, the 3 picks that we are going to be at. We have pick 6, pick 7. As we already discussed, I think we're going to be looking at a tier of 3 players. And with how the rest of the Dynasty community is now just all in on Jackson Smith and Jigba as the 4th pick before we see the landing spot, trust me, I love JSN. But I would be very surprised if we see anybody at this point take Will Levis over Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, as Will Levis is a real contender to go 2nd overall in this year's draft, and he has some rushing upside, personally, I kind of think Will Levis should be, I actually probably would rank him over Jackson Smith and Jigba if he goes 2 overall. It doesn't really matter because I think Will Levis will be there for you at 6 and at 7. So will Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, pick 11 will, in my mind, be a strong selection. And then if we look at how the tiers break down right now, in my mind, we are going with the top 4 quarterbacks in any order you like: Young, Stroud, Richardson, Levis. Running backs: Bijan, Gibbs, Charbonnet. Wide receiver: JSN, Johnston, Addison, Zay Flowers. A lot of people are moving Zay Flowers ahead of some of those names inside the top 10. And with that assumption, I think we can actually have one of those players inside the top 10 falling to us at 11. And even if that doesn't happen, then we still get Zay Flowers, who should be a very nice selection. So I really like being at 11. I mean, I'd be much more worried if we were at 12. If we were at 13, 14, 15 there, I think you're just going to be looking at a significantly worse player. But yeah, I think we are in a great spot both to contend this season as well as the long term. In terms of going through and making any other moves outside of possibly seeing what we could get by selling Kittle, keep in mind the man is 30 years old, even if he was just drafted in 2017. I don't necessarily think we should be doing anything else. I don't want to say to continue to sell all these veterans and try to get assets that are going to be more productive for longer, just because we did sell our 2024 first round picks. So we are kind of pot committed here to make sure that we are going through and contending this season, which I think we've already put ourselves in a very good position to do just that. But there's not too much we're going to be saying. Maybe if we can sell Mike Evans and we can go get Calvin Ridley to stack up Trevor Lawrence and Ridley, or maybe sell Mike Evans and go get Amari Cooper and stack up Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson. I think that could be a play, but in reality, we're just nitpicking there. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this roster construction. Obviously, it is a dominant team and most likely going to be the favorite to win this next season. But I think that's all we have for this breakdown. Again, my friend, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really do hope that was able to help you out some. And as always, reach out to me. If there's anything I can do for you, especially if there's anything you want to see on flockfantasy.com, let me know and do not hesitate to do so. Okay, but now let's go over to our next team here. This one coming out from 2 balls, 1 bat. Says 12-team Superflex PPR 4-point passing touchdown. I'm clearly rebuilding. We do lottery, and I haven't been lucky enough to get a premium quarterback draft pick. What should we be looking to do? First off, my friend, thank you for being a member of the flock. Second off, I will admit, I think if we are talking about like a perfect world, if we are talking about if everything was great, a draft lottery should be in play, right? In Dynasty leagues, the draft lottery makes so much sense to make sure that everybody's trying to contend each and every year. But in every instance that I've been in a league that has a draft lottery, I don't want to say it ruins the league, but it is very difficult to continue to see the churn and to see bad teams become good teams. Because while, yes, it would be nice if every Dynasty owner was equal, and if everybody had the same luck, it'd be a very nice setting to have. However, when you actually implement this, instead what you're going to see is some teams are just horrible. You all know a Dynasty team in your league that is a train wreck, that has no chance to win. And they don't even get to 101. They have no shot to turn it around by grabbing Bijan Robinson. It just, in my mind, is a lot better in theory than in implementation. But anyway, let's go into this team here. And this is going to be a team that we can see right away. Yes, we are going to be rebuilding. At quarterback, we have Kyler Murray. Down there in the Superflex spot, we're rolling with Brock Purdy. We have Mac Jones on the bench, and that's about it. So definitely at quarterback, it'd be really nice if we could bring in an answer for the long term. I mean, if we're going to be looking at the rookie picks that we have this year, we do have the 106. So 106, there's a chance we get Will Levis falling. And if Will Levis falls there, beautiful. I would love it. And we're easily drafting Will Levis at pick 6 if he'll be there. And I think that could help us a lot at the quarterback position. And in general, if we're looking to sell any of these quarterbacks, probably not. I mean, the main thing that you are going to have against Kyler Murray is going to be the fact that he's going to miss a large chunk of this next season with his serious injury. But given the fact this team is rebuilding, that's not something we should really hold against Kyler Murray, because if we're rebuilding, I would rather Kyler Murray not be out there. I'd rather Kyler Murray be scoring 0 points. We have the best chance at a high draft pick next year, even if it is a lottery. So that doesn't really affect you. Purdy, Mac Jones, you're not going to get much for. So I think we're going to be just holding pat there. Now, going over to running back, we have Pollard, Rashad White, Damian Harris in the starting lineup. Then going down to the bench, I mean, we have Khalil Herbert, Brian Robinson. So we have a whole lot of running back depth, right? I mean, we have a ton of running backs that we can say, okay, yeah, he has a shot to be a running back 2. He can be a running back 3. We really don't have that elite level player. And the closest thing to it is Tony Pollard, who's currently on the franchise tag. So if you're looking at a running back that's already passed his rookie deal on a rebuilding roster, your first objective should be, we are selling this guy. Let's go through and let's see what kind of value that we can get for Tony Pollard. Obviously, you're not going to get, 3 first-round picks for him. But if we could go through and sell Tony Pollard for maybe a 2024 first, second, third and fourth, especially considering this is an IDP league. So those third and fourth round picks are actually going to be worth something because it's an IDP league. I would like that. And it would give us, yet again, a better chance at a high draft pick next offseason. Assets that are guaranteed to increase in dynasty value. Whereas you can see Tony Pollard being a phenomenal option this next season. But you'd also see his dynasty value falling off the map. So I'm going to be looking to sell Pollard. I'm going to be looking to sell Rachaad White. I'm going to be looking to sell Damian Harris. In general, any running back that's not a rookie on a rebuilding roster, bye. See you later. We'll trade for running backs when we're ready to contend. Going over to wide receiver, Tyreek Hill, Hollywood Brown. These are also going to be guys that we're looking to sell. Treylon Burks, I think we can build around. I mean, you could reasonably see Treylon Burks and his dynasty value increasing next year, right? And a big gauge on if we should be selling an asset on a rebuilding team. And we talked about this in that dynasty research book. I mean, I know you're a member of flockfantasy.com. Just head over to the draft guide tab and you'll see we posted our dynasty research book over 100 pages. We have an entire chapter in there about rebuilding a dynasty team. A big question you should ask yourself if you have a rebuilding roster is, will this player be more valuable next offseason? Because we know if we trade for a rookie pick, that rookie pick will be more valuable next offseason. It's not up for debate. In the case of Tyreek Hill, it doesn't matter if he is the wide receiver 1 overall in fantasy football this next year. His dynasty value will take a hit. Hollywood Brown, even if he is a top 20 wide receiver in fantasy this next season, even if he is a younger option, even if he was only drafted in 2019, his dynasty value will either stay neutral or possibly take a hit. If Hollywood Brown were to see a massive spike in value, he would have to be a wide receiver 1 this next season from a fantasy football standpoint if he were to have more dynasty value next offseason than he currently does. So in general, I think that we're going to go ahead. I think that we are going to look to sell Hollywood, sell Tyreek, but Burks, you could see his value climbing. I mean, it's definitely not a guarantee by any means, but if Treylon Burks were to go out there and be a top 24 wide receiver, he would be worth significantly more next offseason than he is this year. So we are fine holding him, even if he is not guaranteed to increase in value. And going down to the bench, Chark, obviously, if we could sell for a second and a third, we go ahead and we do that in a heartbeat. If we're looking at price points that we're trying to sell Tyreek Hill and Hollywood Brown for, I would say we would try to sell Tyreek Hill for 2 future first, and then hopefully some late picks with this being IDP. And then with Hollywood Brown, if we could get a first round pick in return for Hollywood Brown, even if we would have to throw in a little more depth, like even if we would have to go Hollywood Brown and Damian Harris and go get that first round pick, or Hollywood Brown, Damian Harris and DJ Chark and go get that first round pick, we're going to do it. I honestly probably want to be selling Evan Ingram here as well. I mean, if we were going to be looking at Evan Ingram, hard to imagine you're going to get too much value, but if we can sell Ingram for a second and a third, or maybe just pivot off of Evan Ingram for a younger tight end, maybe someone like Michael Mayer, I think that makes sense on this roster in particular. Now, going over to the IDP side of things, I am very sorry, my friend. I am not going to be able to help with IDP. Now, a lot of teams that we look at that have an IDP aspect to them, they only start 1 defensive back, 1 linebacker, 1 defensive lineman. So in there, yeah, you don't even need to worry about individual defensive players. I mean, in that kind of format, they are literally meaningless. You could always go to the waiver wire and you could always find someone. This is a little more of a serious IDP league. Now, you're not having to start 3 or 4 linebackers by any means, so it's not crazy into IDP, but you still have to start 2 defensive linemen, 2 defensive backs, 2 linebackers, and the flex. So it's definitely a more serious IDP league. So I think we can look to draft a couple of these guys in the later rounds of our rookie drafts. Whereas if you're playing in an IDP league where you only start 1 of each position, there you pretty much just completely ignore it. Now, going over to the rookie picks that we have, the 106, like we were discussing, in my mind, I think you have to take Will Levis. I know a lot of people have convinced themselves that Will Levis is going to be a really bad NFL quarterback. I don't understand the thought process behind that. Like, in my mind, I know I'm stupid, right? Fully aware, and I am 100% willing to admit it. So if I see an NFL team, NFL talent evaluators, a team that's able to sit down with these quarterbacks, talk to them, watch them in practice, go over film with them at the most complicated position in almost all of sports, and they have access to significantly more data than we do. If those organizations then deem Will Levis is good enough to be the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, which he looks like he's trending towards now, and Will Levis at the same time has some rushing upside to score fantasy points when he does start for an NFL team. In my mind, if you're able to get that kind of player at pick 6, you have to pull the trigger. If Levis falls to 6, please go ahead and take him. If Anthony Richardson falls to 6, please go ahead and take him. Now, 210, 305, 405, 505. I'd imagine here we're probably going to be looking at those individual defensive players. And to be honest with you, I mean, we've been doing research on the guys that will be at the NFL draft for round 1 because, I don't know if you heard my friend, but we will be there interviewing those guys. So I've been researching these guys a decent amount to try to come up with some interview questions. But outside of that, I'm not going to be able to help too much. But I think that's all we have for you. Again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. I really hope this was able to help you out. I really hope you got something from it. And you know what I'm going to say? As always, if there's anything I can do for you, please do not hesitate. You know where to find me. Shoot me a message on Discord, especially if there's anything that you want to see on flockfantasy.com that we currently don't already have there, my friend. But let's go over to our next team. This one going to be coming out from Back 9 Chris. Thank you, my man, for being a member of the flock. Says 12-team Superflex PPR tight end premium. Feel free to use on YouTube. Had the 101, but worked a few trades to end up with Pickett, Judy, and Drake London. Interested in seeing what to use my 103 and 105 for, and or trading some players we currently already have. Thanks for any input on what I should do. No, thank you, my man, for being a member of the flock. So if we had the 101 and our net result of that was Kenny Pickett, Jerry Judy, and Drake London, to be completely honest with you, of course, I'm very biased, right? I went to the University of Texas. I graduated from the University of Texas while Bijan Robinson was there. So, I mean, I am an extremely biased individual with this. But I think I would rather have Bijan Robinson over the package of Judy, London, and Kenny Pickett. Now, trust me, I love Drake London. I think London is a phenomenal prospect. But I would imagine we have a difficult time. I mean, if we could sell Judy and Kenny Pickett and get 2 2024 first, there I'd probably rather have Drake London and 2 2024 first over Bijan Robinson. So there I'd probably like the package. But in general, I think that we would probably prefer to have Bijan. Now, going into this team in particular, at quarterback, we have Trey Lance, Kenny Pickett. Going down to the bench, we have Baker Mayfield, Zach Wilson, Matt Corral. So, I mean, we have a decent amount of quarterbacks that could start at the next level. In reality, these guys aren't guaranteed to start. But one thing I do want to be talking about now that we look at the league settings here, I can definitely say I would have rather had Bijan Robinson rather than those top 3. I'm sorry, those 3 players in the package. Because if we're looking at the amount of roster spots that we have with this team, right? This is a shallower roster. Like, I mean, right now, we are going to have to plan on bringing in the 103, 105, 204, 211, and presumably 301. We're going to have to plan on bringing in about 5 names. I don't see a taxi squad. So, if we're having to try to figure out 5 guys that we're going to cut, Isaiah Spiller cut. Matt Corral cut. Okay, we're going to have to toss this to y'all. Please, please, please. Everybody go to the chat. Let me know who are the 5 players that you were cutting from this team. And this is a good exercise, right? Whenever we go through and make those deals where you trade Bijan Robinson for a package of 3 guys, you sell the dollar for 3 or 4 quarters, there's a hidden cost, and you're having to also give up roster spots to take on those 3 quarters, to take on those 4 quarters. I mean, maybe a better analogy is if we sell Bijan Robinson for the combo of Drake London, Kenny Pickett, as well as Jerry Judy, we sell a quarter for 3 dimes. Maybe the 3 dimes add up to be worth a little bit more, but in reality, when we're having to make this difficult decision on these 5 guys that we're having to cut, it's a little tougher. So yeah, if you're looking at a couple of these answers, Captain U says we're cutting Matt Corral, Isaiah Spiller, Joshua Palmer, Zach Wilson, and Kenneth Gainwell. It just puts you in a very difficult position on what we do with this roster from here on out. So the last thing I want to be doing, to be honest with you, is selling like the 103 and 105 and going and getting more packages. No, we have enough depth. We don't need to be bringing in any more depth. We don't need to be making any more 1-for-2 deals because we're already having to make difficult decisions. We're already having to cut guys that have upside like Jaylen Warren, like Kenneth Gainwell, that could be startable running backs at individual points this next year, dependent on how injuries and the depth chart shakes out in front of them. So going position by position, we have Lance, we have Kenny Pickett, we have those other quarterbacks that could be starters this next year. In reality, I do not think that stops us from taking a quarterback at 3. I'm about to get very hot takey, and I understand that. But I think at 3, obviously, if Bryce Young falls, we take him. Now, there are a lot of rumors right now that CJ Stroud may be falling almost outside the top 10 picks of this year's draft. I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying he shouldn't. I don't know. But if CJ Stroud were to fall outside the top 10 picks of this year's draft, or if he were to fall down boards considerably, very similar to what we had back in 2018 when Josh Rosen fell down NFL draft boards and everybody in Dynasty thought he was all of a sudden some massive value, I'll pass. I'll take the guy who went higher than Dynasty players thought he would. I'll go ahead and I'll take Josh Allen, in this case, Will Levis. I'm not saying Will Levis is going to be Josh Allen. Or in 2019, when Dwayne Haskins plummeted down draft boards and everybody went, oh my gosh, this is the steal of the draft. It's Dwayne Haskins, Ohio State. And Daniel Jones went higher than people thought he would. And we pivoted to Daniel Jones over Dwayne Haskins and looked like an idiot at the time. And obviously, we see how it turns out. I think that 103, Levis is in play if he goes as the second overall player off the board, if Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud both fall outside the top 5 picks. Because going back to what I was saying, I am an idiot, okay? And I'm going to be the first person to admit it. But if NFL talent evaluators, NFL organizations who get things wrong all the time, but the Dynasty community gets things wrong even more at quarterback. If they tell us Will Levis is a better quarterback than CJ Stroud, and Will Levis has more rushing upside than CJ Stroud does for fantasy football purposes, I may end up considering Levis here. And I know that is crazy. To be honest with you, you could probably get Levis at 5. So in this case, I don't even think we would lock into Will Levis at the 103, but I think we'd probably look to go QB, 103, 105, right? Whether that's Richardson, Levis, whether that's Stroud, Levis, whether that's Stroud, Richardson. Of course, if Young falls, we take Young. But nonetheless, I think we're probably going to end up going quarterback, 3 and 5, even if we have on paper a decent amount of options. Going over to RB, we have Travis Etienne, Rachaad White in the starting lineup. Going down to the bench, I mean, we have Kenneth Gainwell. We have some quality depth pieces here. Guys I do not want to have to cut. That's why maybe if we go back to what we have with some of these other names, like Drake London, Devonta Smith, Jerry Jeudy, Sky Moore, and then going down to the bench here, I mean, we have Nico Collins, Joshua Palmer, Alec Pierce. One thing that we could look to do is start making 2-for-1 deals and upgrading the starting lineup. Like maybe we want to take some of this quote unquote wide receiver depth that we have. Maybe if we wanted to go through and package together Jerry Jeudy as well as Trey McBride and go get a tight end that we're more excited about, I think that could make a lot of sense if it is going to free up a roster spot for us. That way we're not having to let go of Kenneth Gainwell. We're not having to let go of Jaylen Warren, because on a roster like this, those running backs are going to be incredibly important as those depth names. So to recap everything that we're doing with this team in general, first off, please stop trading one piece for 3 in return, one piece for 2 in return. We have enough depth. We need to be consolidating. We need to be making the 2-for-1 deal. We need to be making the 3-for-1 deal. How I think we do that is I think we package together maybe a Kenny Pickett and Trey McBride and go get Dallas Goedert if a team needs a quarterback. We go and take 2 QBs at pick 3 and pick 5. And then if we're able to do those things, if we were able to make those two packages up, then we are going to have to cut 2 fewer players off this roster. And I think we could be in a much better position in general. This is a very strong team. I mean, we have those additional 2024 first-round picks as well. So I think we're in a good spot. I just think that we have to make sure that we're making the right decisions from here on out. Mitch says, Levis could get drafted number 1 overall, and I still wouldn't draft him. He's going to bust so hard. Yeah. I'm smart enough to know that I'm an idiot and that I have no idea what college quarterback prospect is going to do good or bad. Seeing the Dynasty community scream how bad Daniel Jones is, scream how Josh Allen was the worst NFL draft pick of all time. Seeing those guys go to the 2nd round of Dynasty's Superflex rookie drafts. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going down I'm a better quarterback talent evaluator than the professionals at it. I think running back, wide receiver, we can look for different things in fantasy football than NFL teams are. So I think we can be much more better about who's going to be a productive wide receiver at the NFL level than NFL teams. And while draft capital is important, it's not everything there. And I would say the same thing at running back and almost the same thing at tight end. Quarterback's the one position where I think we really got to just listen to what the guys who actually have access to these players are telling us. But I think that's all we're going to have for today's live stream. We will be live again tomorrow or maybe the next day. But the most important live stream will be before the NFL draft, when I will be on the red carpet interviewing these players. Never in a million years would I have guessed that we could do this. It is the most exciting thing that I think we've ever had access to. So please, 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 please come out to that live stream with us. It'll be a whole lot of fun. We're doing everything in my power to make sure that it is the best thing we've ever had on that channel. But it's going to be on the main channel, not this one. Flock Fantasy, not Dynasty Football Flock. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much for everything, ladies and gentlemen. And as always, if you want to get your team broken down on one of these live streams, if you want to get access to all your favorite Dynasty Fantasy Football creators, you can find that on flockfantasy.com. Sign up with promo code FLOCK if you want your team broken down by yours truly, as well as 30% off any subscription. I mean, you can go set up an account there and get a 2-day free trial and just check everything out for free if you really wanted to right now. But thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate you and really hope that you're having a great day.